Hello, I'm Bill English, the publisher here at Bible and Business. If you've been watching this series, I want to welcome you back. If this is your first time joining me here at the Bible and Business YouTube channel, I want to thank you for joining me today. You're catching me in a series on the third chapter of my book, A Christian Theology of Business Ownership, an introduction for Christian entrepreneurs on what the Bible says about owning a business. Chapter 3 is about Christian stewardship, and today's episode is about our relationship with God. In other words, this is the third foundation of Christian stewardship, our relationship with God. But you know what? Before I get into this today, what I'd like to do is just ask you to run over to BibleandBusiness.com, check out my articles and podcasts and the other resources I have there for Christians who own businesses. So looking at our relationship with God, the agenda for today's broadcast is very simple. We're going to look at this third principle by looking at the parable of the 10 talents in Matthew 25, verses 14 and 15, and then drawing some lessons from there. Now, our third principle concerns our relationship with God, as I've already mentioned. And I want to summarize this principle this way. Stewards know and understand their master, whom they serve, so that they can fulfill their master's expectations. So I get this third principle from Matthew chapter 25 and the parable of the 10 talents. In this well-known parable, Jesus describes a master who goes on a long journey and entrusts some of his property to his servants. To the first servant he gives 5 talents, to the second he gives 2, and to a third servant he gives 1 talent. After he returns, what he learns is that the first servant earned 5 more talents. So he went from 5 talents to 10 talents. The second servant earned 2 more talents. He went from 2 talents to 4 talents. But the third servant earned nothing. The third servant earned absolutely nothing, and in fact went and hid the talent that he was given by his master in the ground so that he wouldn't lose it. So what happened? How did the owner react to all of this? Well, again, we're continuing to recap Matthew 25, the parable here. To the one who earned 5 talents, the master gave him 5 more to manage. To the one who earned 2 talents, the master gave him 2 more to manage. In addition, both gained more of their master's presence and were invited to live closer with him. But to the one who earned no talents, he was thrown outside into the darkness. What was the difference between the first 2 servants and the third servant? Well, the first 2 servants knew their master. They understood his heart. They understood his intentions. They knew what his agenda was. And so they acted in accordance with that, and they made money on the talents that they were given, and they were able to give the master back a return on his investment. But the third servant didn't know his master very well. He made assumptions about his master that just were not true. He thought his master was a hard man. In other words, he was uncaring. He thought his master, he describes it as reaping where you did not sow. In other words, the master was someone who exploited others for his own benefits. The third servant, the third servant who wasn't very successful at all, saw his master as gathering where he did not scatter seed. In other words, he went and gathered. He stole from other people that which was not rightfully his. This servant ended up being a worthless servant because he didn't have a healthy relationship with his master. It's really important to note here that the reason that the worthless servant came to such wrong conclusions about his master was because he didn't know him. So when the Bible describes the worthless servant as saying he was that he found the master hard, that he found that the master was exploitive of other people, that he found that the master was a thief and stole from other people, the Bible makes it clear in the parable of the 10 talents in Matthew 25 that the master was none of those things. But the reason that the worthless servant thought that he was those things was because the worthless servant didn't take the time to get to know his master. He didn't, in common or modern a corporate vernacular, he didn't manage up. He didn't understand his master very well. And that was the reason that he came to wrong conclusions. One of the core things about Christian stewardship is that we have to get to know God if we're going to really understand his agenda. So here's the lesson. Take time, quality time, to get to know God. If we are going to steward well his entrustments to us, then in order to steward those entrustments well, we have to get to know his heart. We have to get to know his intentions. We have to understand what God really wants in what he has entrusted to us. This goes for everything that we own, whether it's our house, our cars, our boats, our homes, our cabins, our monies, our 401ks, whether it's our talents that we own, whether it's investments that we own. All of this is something that has to be stewarded well for God, and therefore we have to get to know God's intentions for why he gave us those things in the first place. So here's our lessons that we learned from today. That God owns everything, that everything we have is an entrustment from God, and that good stewards get to know their masters well. So let me ask, has God entrusted a business to you, a team, a project, maybe a new idea? My question is this: are you stewarding that well? That's an entrustment from God. That's not yours. That's an entrustment from God. And are you drawing close to God so that you can know how he wants you to manage his entrustments? Now, in our next episode, the fourth foundation for Christian stewardship, we're going to look at this concept that it is God who gives us the ability to create wealth. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Bill English, the publisher here at Bible and Business. I hope you can go out and make it a great day. Take care.